What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Back with Monday Mail Days. Today is Monday, and I'm going to get right into it. We had a packed weekend, a lot of Broner questions, Hassan Nadam. I've caught up on all the fights. I covered the Andre Ward versus Paul Smith fight, and between yesterday and today, I just watched Hassan Nadam versus David Lemieux. So I'm fully caught up, and I'm ready to answer questions. First question comes from Cobra V27. Where does Adrien Broner go from here? Will he become a journeyman in the sport? And it's tough telling and kind of predicting the future, but it's looking that way. And it's because I've always noticed issues, and I don't even know why I picked Broner based on what I told you in my prediction. He's very inconsistent with his performances, and I like stability. And for whatever reason, I thought Broner, being motivated, would be able to get up for this particular fight and put it all together. But he wasn't able to do that, and he came up short. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter at the elite level. It doesn't matter how much talent you have if somebody wants it more than you. And Shawn Porter proved that. He proved that. I think Broner still is the more effective boxer. But Shawn Porter was hungry. He was not willing to back down. Even after getting hurt, he did, smart veteran tactics, smother Broner's work. And you never really seen Broner, even though you needed a knockout to win on my card. You needed a knockout to win, and you didn't see Broner go for broke. Broner should have been trying his damnedest to knock that boy out. He should have tried to knock him out because that was your only opening, your only opportunity, and you allowed him to smother. I would be fighting, like, if you notice, there was no sense of urgency the whole fight. Look at Shane Mosley. This is a perfect example in my mind. Shane Mosley, world-class fighter. Shout out to my dude Shane. When he fought Mayweather, he rocked Mayweather, and Mayweather clinched and grabbed him because he was definitely hurt, right? And look at Shane Mosley's reaction. He knew Mayweather was hurt, and he was like fighting and fidgeting, trying to free his arm to continue assaulting Mayweather, right? But Adrien Broner, you knocked the man down. You didn't just jump back. Look how Triple G, when he has Willie Monroe down or Martin Murray, when they get back up, look what he does next. Broner, I didn't really get that. And that was your opening. So for me, I don't really know where Broner goes from here. I think kind of the blueprint of what troubles him is already out there. And it's the pressure style, people who are gritty and maybe not smaller than him. Like, I think he was bullying some of the smaller fighters, the Gavin Reeses, even if they had the same game plan because he was just naturally bigger and stronger. But as he fights bigger guys, that game plan doesn't always work. And I just haven't seen the proper adjustments needed for him to take it to the next level, especially up top mentally. So I don't really know where he goes from here. He could definitely have more losses on his record soon unless he like redefines and changes his career, his approach. But I think he's more concerned with being a celebrity than being a top level competitor. You say, I'm never going to lose again, and then you lost again. And it's a fight I think he could have won, especially with the catch weight. He could have won, but I just seen no sense of urgency from him. Next question is from Eatman888. Boxing Ego. It's funny how MMA fighters can have 8 or 9 or 10 losses, but still can work themselves back to prominence. But boxers can be thought of as washed up with just after 2 or 4 losses. Why the difference? Is it just that boxing has a higher critique because of its long history? That long history could be one of the reasons. I think it's a multitude of different things. Each sport, whether it's basketball, football, boxing, they all have different fan bases, different demographics. Like if you go to soccer and then you go to Argentina or something, they'll collapse the stadium, fighting for their team. So every sport is individual in that regard, and their fans and what they're doing. Like when I watch boxing, I don't see people really painting their face and stuff. But you watch football, watch a Raiders game and you'll see people with like skull masks and like feather boas and like horns and black face paint, war paint, and all stuff like that. So I think every sport has its own demographic and fan base. That's one reason. And they may be more willing to accept a loss and maybe more loyalty to their fighter. And then also, I think there's more ways to lose in the UFC. Like boxing is pretty cut and dry. Either you're going to get knocked out or a decision. Those are the two most common. Yeah, disqualifications. I mean, how often have you seen disqualifications? They happen. Roy Jones, Diego Chavez. So disqualifications happen, Carlos Molina, but they're not that frequent in the sport of boxing. So really, the two major ways to lose is getting stopped, knocked out, corner stoppage, some kind of stoppage or knockout, or a decision loss, versus MMA, you can get knocked out, you can win a decision, but you can also get submitted. You know what I mean? It's not like you have to tap out. So there's different styles of losing. You know what I mean? So maybe that's one of the reasons people don't hold it against him as much. Like, oh, his arm was about to get broke, so he tapped out, or he had a knockout. You know what I mean? Is a little bit more to decipher versus boxing. A lot of guys who are considered washed up is because they're losing bad. They're losing in bad fashion, getting beat up for 12 rounds or knocked out, like Juanma Lopez. That's why people are like, oh, they're done, because there's only so long you can compete at a high level. Like Vic Darchinyan, I was saying even before this fight, you got stopped by Donaire a second time, then Walters, then leading up to the Jesus Cuellar fight. I was like, this is such a risky fight. A guy with momentum and power, it's done for him if he loses. And it's just what it is. Boxing, you just can't keep competing on a skill level like this. Like in UFC, you might have an opportunity. Like if you're a good grappler or rear naked choke artist or whatever the situation, you still might be able to submit people, even if they're on the up and coming and knockout artists or whatever. But in boxing, it's just a little bit different. So I think different fan bases and the different style of fights, meaning you can lose to a submission, a knockout, a decision. So people are a little bit more accepting than in boxing. Boxing fans have been they're brutal. You know what I mean? Like this is how you have to put it. They're brutal, and that's just how it's always been that I've seen. You get knocked out. You could be Mike Tyson. You get knocked out, and you're, oh, he's a bum. You know what I mean? It just kind of comes with the territory. It's how the sport's been. Next question is from Sword Mask. What's next for Broner? It seems he struggles a lot against pressure fighters. Again, I think he's going to drop back to 140. It's really tough to say where he goes from him. I mean, it's only so long that I could like hold out a bit of hope for somebody that they're going to get it together and change. So I really doesn't know where he goes, because I think a lot of his lapses are mental lapses. I think he's talented. He just doesn't always put it together. And those inconsistent performances, as he matures and gets older, I think he's going to really regret not taking his career as serious as he possibly could have. And it's almost blasphemous that he came in the game kind of like cloning and idolizing Mayweather. In recent time, he hasn't been as much, but that's kind of his image as he came in the game. And it's almost blasphemous that the person you chose to like mimic or like that you look up to happens to be a person who is completely opposite from you in that regard. Everyone I've ever talked to said Floyd Mayweather has a killer work ethic. He talks shit, but then when it comes fight time, it's all business. With Broner, I can't say the same, and I've told people for a while, that's the major difference. Floyd was not out there partying. He wasn't, goofing around. He talked the most shit about Shane Mosley, but when it was lights, camera, action, it's all business. Ricky Hatton, he talked all this shit about all of them, but it's always lights, camera, action. Broner will be losing a fight doing dumb stuff, to me. Like the Maidana fight, he started dry humping Maidana from the back. This fight, Porter was dogging him and outworking him severely, and he started hitting reverse hits behind the head and doing stupid stuff out of frustration. Just stuff that reminds me of Victor Ortiz. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's up to him what he decides and how far he's planning on going with this career. He does struggle with pressure fighters, and the blueprint's out. Next question is Cesar Garza. Who should be next for Porter? Khan, Thurman, Maidana, or Garcia? Now, me personally, I like all of those particular fights. I think Thurman and Maidana are the more dangerous fights for Porter's style. But I'm a boxing fan, so I'm open to any of those fights. Those are all great fights. Khan versus Porter is very interesting to me because Khan has struggled with pressure styles, and Porter, I would say, can be outboxed because he's kind of wild and sloppy at times. So I'd be interested to see if Khan has the resolve to keep a bully like Porter off of him, a guy who's strong and who's going to try to get in close. And Porter's conditioning has been looking really good. He's doing the same thing late in the fight, minus the 12th round with Broner, but he kept up that hectic pace for a good portion of the Broner-Porter fight. And even the Kell Brook fight, which I thought he was definitely losing, I mean, he keeps up a good frenetic pace, and that'll cause most people to fold. So all of those are great fights. I think Thurman and Maidana are the most dangerous. Garcia, I mean, he's going up against Paulie Malignaggi, who's another boxer. That's a style he struggled with. So I want to see how he looks in that particular fight at welterweight before I start mixing him up. but he has to show me something because 2 of his last 3 fights have been suspect. So Danny Garcia has to show me that he's ready for welterweight before I really even comment on Porter versus Garcia and stuff, because Danny Garcia is at a point in his career for me where he has to prove some things and prove that he can hang with any welterweight before I start matching him with anybody top 10 at the welterweight division. Next question, Mr. Talk Cash. Ego, do you think Broner would have won if he had a different trainer? I mean, he doesn't know how to switch from being defensive to offensive at all. I see a lot of talent, but he doesn't have the it factor. What do you think about him not having the it factor as well? Great question, and I'm kind of been talking about Broner. I agree. He doesn't have that, like, Triple G. I notice, I know people get mad, I notice flaws in Triple G. But the thing that separates him, he brings a ton of experience, and he's very good at what he does. And ultimately, despite any flaw, I see the willingness and the drive to want to win and want to keep fighting. He's a real fighter. For Broner, he almost seems like an actor playing as a fighter. Not saying he has no skill, but he just doesn't have that gusto, like the it factor, like you're talking about. I don't see it. Like these are fights where all of his losses have been winnable fights, or at least even if it's not winnable, they've been fights he could at least have been like a Canelo Lara fight where it was just back and forth, very close. But he's getting like, I don't know, man. He's not showing any type of separation, I guess you could say. But I don't like to blame the trainer. I don't really think, I mean, I don't know if Stafford is necessarily, I like Stafford, but I don't know if he's necessarily the right fit. Like, if you look at the Maidana fight, I didn't like the coaching that he was getting. It was like, he was like, chill out. And he was telling the corner what to do. So I feel like Stafford, I don't know, maybe it's just a little bit too friendly over there with them because he's been training them since he was younger or whatever. So I can't really blame the trainer, even though I think another trainer could possibly benefit him. I think really the biggest problem, the number one problem, is Broner mentally, like what he mentally does. You know what I'm saying? And no trainer can fix that. It's like some of the decisions he makes, like I said in the other question, playing around when you're losing. Who does that? Why would you play around when you need to gain ground and start turning the fight around? You know what I mean? Doing things, the same thing, like flagrantly, that's going to get a point deducted, which later happened in the Shawn Porter fight. This is just all horrible in terms of performance. And this was even more so to take this fight serious. This was the Battle of Ohio, bragging rights. If somebody says, oh, I'm out in the Bay, I'm a better boxing analyst than Ego, or I'm this and that, you know what I'm saying? And we're having a Battle of the Bay contest, debate, or whatever the situation is, best believe I'm bringing my A game because I'm a competitive person. And it's just that simple. Next question comes from Darren Studway. What is wrong with AB? Is he scared to let his hands go against pressure fighters, or dehydration has played a big part in fight? I mean, I don't know about dehydration. I mean, Broner looked very big to me personally. He looked big in the fight with Porter. He almost looked bigger than Porter. So I don't really know about dehydration. If he was dehydrated, it looked like he made weight cool. I mean, he shouldn't have no problems. He was moving up from 140. His last couple fights have been went up at 140. And again, like I keep saying with AB, I don't know what's wrong with him, but I think most of it is mental lapses. And you have to be mentally strong in this game. And I think Broner cares more about being a celebrity than actually being a world-class elite level fighter where my legacy is going to be one of the best that's ever done it. You know what I'm saying? Even though he talks like that's what he wants, I don't see that when he's fighting. And then I think the Maidana loss has him a little bit shook to let his hands go because nobody's in a rush to, like, Broner's lucky he didn't get knocked down or knocked out or anything in this particular fight because that's a little bit of a saving grace, even though it was a bad performance by him. But I think that Maidana loss might have him a little bit shook. Like, you know, he knows he can't afford to get dropped 2 and 3 times and trash like he did in the Maidana fight. So that might be one thing with the pressure fighter. You got to give credit to Shawn Porter. He was conditioned very well. He was doing some athletic head movements and feints and stuff like that. So a bit hard to read from Shawn Porter. And then Broner, like I said, he's just not willing to go for broke when he needs to. And Shawn Porter is awkward and kind of unorthodox, herky-jerky, and he was giving him different looks. And Broner, basically, from what I've seen, he was scared to let his hands go, like you said, and he didn't want to commit because he probably didn't want to get caught with something, and he doesn't know how to deal with it, period. Versus Mayweather, who's a king of adjusting, that's the difference. You know what I mean? Broner doesn't know how to make those fly on the Johnny on the spot split decisions, like executive decisions right then and there. Mayweather, like I said earlier, versus Shane Mosley, that's a perfect example. He was probably, that's one of the times I've seen him the most hurt in any fight with Mayweather, right? But he makes those smart executive decisions. Otherwise, he probably would have hit the canvas if he didn't grab on real quick and hold on for dear life. Broner, he doesn't think, he doesn't process that quickly. So I think that's a big part. He doesn't have that rapid fire, instant processing of data like Big Bro does. So against pressure fighters, they're causing him to think faster than he can compute, if that makes any sense. Next question, Jeremy Wyatt. Hey, what's up, Ego? Do you think AB can still compete at an elite level if he fights strictly at 140? Can he compete with DSG, Lamont, Matisse? I mean, DSG's moving up to welterweight, so I don't know if that fight will happen. Lamont Peterson and him, they're really good friends, so I doubt that will happen. Matisse, Crawford, there's other people at 140. I said this in the other video, post-fight. I'm not picking Broner. I learned my lesson. You know what I mean? I'm not going to... I'd rather not pick him because he's inconsistent than to get another prediction wrong against an elite name. Now, if he's fighting Emmanuel Taylor Part 2 or a guy like that, I could pick Broner. But if we're talking about the top 5 at 140, I'm not picking Broner, period. For me, that's just me. Until he proves me wrong, you know what I mean, he's not getting picked. So Matisse, again, like I said earlier in this video, Matisse, no matter what, I've always seen the fire, the burning desire to want to win. You look at Danny Garcia versus Matisse. The dude had a Cyclops eye. His eye was swollen. Danny Garcia can crack. He has power. Danny Garcia has a good beard, and he's a good counterpuncher. And he was leveling Danny Garcia, or he was leveling Matisse with some good shots. And Matisse was still in it. He was still dangerous. He was still fighting. Broner, on the other hand, he clinched for dear life, made no adjustments, never really let his hands go, and then he finally did something in the 12th, but it was too little too late. You know what I mean? Look at Matisse Garcia, where, like, Broner's face at the end of the fight with Porter was clean. Matisse looked disfigured versus Garcia, yet the Garcia-Matisse fight was closer. I had a closer scorecard. He was still dangerous. Like, late in the fight, he knocked out Garcia's mouthpiece across the ring or whatever. But the Broner fight, Porter fight, you can't even really give Broner more than 2 rounds. So I'm not picking Broner. He can compete maybe, but I don't know. I can't picture. I'm not going to pick him to beat Matisse, Crawford, or anybody like that because I always see more of a willingness to win with those top 5 dudes. Next question, View of the Bay 510. Yo, Ego, what do you think about a fight between Triple G and Lemieux after his fight Saturday night? He looked like a beast. Both men proved they have a great chin. Bomb. Keep up the good work. And what's next for Broner? I've continued to talk about Broner, so the earlier question should have answered that part of your question. And as far as Triple G versus Lemieux, I actually did a video earlier this morning about that fight. I love it. I think Lemieux looked good. He's definitely resurrected his career, and his power is a real deal. He's a left hook artist, and ultimately that's what it's going to take to beat a Triple G, somebody that can back up Triple G and he respects their power. I would pick Triple G to beat David Lemieux for a variety of different reasons. If that fight comes closer to being made, then I will give you more of those reasons. But I like the fight. I would pay for the fight. It's an action style fight, Mexican style, whatever you want to call it. That's a good fight. And it's a unification since Lemieux is now a champion after fighting for the vacant belt versus Hassan Nadam. And I do like how Lemieux has fought Rosado and then Hassan Indam. That's a good variety of different styles. And then to fight Triple G, that's a different style. So I'm all for it. Count me in. I'll pay for it. Whatever needs to happen because it's a good fight. And then if you want a little bit more on that, I did a video on it earlier today if you haven't checked that out. Question comes from Homester TV Legend Gamer. What did your friends say when you start YouTube? Ooh, that's a unique question. Now, I mean, when I first started YouTube, I think a lot of people with any endeavor, like people always consider it a hobby. They don't really know if you want to like make a career out of it or how serious you're going to take it, because a lot of times I know people who went to college and they're like, oh, this is my major, and then they no longer are interested in that major, and then they switch to something else. So I think a lot of people more or less they didn't know why they're like, what are you doing this for? Why are you making videos? But you just got to stick with it and keep building your brand. And if you have a vision, just don't let nobody stop you. And nowadays, I think they can understand why I stuck with it, because, you know what I mean, thanks to the fans, 20,000 subs plus later, over 10 million views and stuff. This is part of the vision, and I'm not even fully where I want to be, but a lot of people more or less just didn't understand why I was doing it. They, like, oh, what's in it for you type of attitude. But again, I had a vision. I stuck with it. I love the sport of boxing. So I just kept showing and showing and telling people why through my work. Next question, Ali Diego 619. Do you think Porter versus Khan is an interesting fight? Yes. And I think I answered that earlier. I should have grouped this question with the earlier question, but I really like it because both guys have kind of struggled with what the other person does. Khan being an elusive, fast boxer. I don't really remember the last guy that Porter fought that was quick like Khan. You could say Broner, but he showed me no hand speed except for that left hook, that check left hook. That was like the only time. He didn't really let his hands go enough to, he's normally a fast person, but he didn't really show me much of that. And then Khan, we haven't seen him in with the guy who can crack, a guy with some punching power, really since Danny Garcia. So the timing's right for the fight, and Khan wants the Mayweather fight. Mayweather will probably go for 50-0. So if he doesn't get the fight in September, maybe make Porter versus Khan, and then the winner faces Mayweather. I'm okay with anything like that. Great timing. And the final question, when do you think the Canelo-Cotto fight will happen? I do think it will happen in 2015. There's a lot of indications of that. When I covered the Andre Ward versus Paul Smith fight in Oakland Oracle, Sway, the radio from the morning show, he interviewed Miguel Cotto. I'll try to find the footage and upload that for you guys to look at it in case you didn't see it. But Cotto says basically it's a go, and he's training for Canelo. So I think it'll happen this year, fourth quarter, in November, December, to cap off the year, and that'll make for a great year of boxing. I've always been an advocate of this fight. Good Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry in boxing. Both guys have been impressive and knocking guys out, or overall looking good. You know what I mean? Kirkland, TKO or KO or whatever it was. Then before that, Laura, kind of a shaky performance, but he did get the victory. Then he beat the shit out of Angulo. And then Cotto's on a 3-win TKO streak. Great timing for that fight. I think the fans will be invested, casuals, hardcore boxing fans. And it's a blockbuster fight, which is what I really like. So I like the event. They'll probably do a press tour, because Mayweather versus Pacquiao was very unique. The way it was handled, everything, co-promotions and stuff. Both fighters fight on HBO, so I think it'll be more of the typical cliche build-up, like a press tour, a face-off, because this is all in-house with HBO, and it don't really have nothing to do with Showtime, since Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy have no problem working with HBO. And then Rock Nation, I don't think they have a problem. I mean, Cotto's with Rock Nation, and Daniel Gill, that particular fight happened on HBO. So I think it'll be a more sound build-up than the Mayweather-Pacquiao, which was just kind of all over the place. You needed Les Moonves to regulate what was going on and stuff like that. And that wraps up Monday Mail Day. I try to get to as much questions. I got some other things to drop, interviews, great stuff, unique stuff on the channel. So stay tuned for that. That wraps up Monday Mail Day. Make sure you like my video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.